I see a lot of people make the mistake of just practicing orchestra excerpts. This is not good for your playing. This is not healthy.
One of my goals this year in making these videos for you is to focus on practice habits. I'm talking about how you organize your daily practice session and how you manage your repertoire leading up to various deadlines. But people practice differently from one another. So one thing I'm doing to help you figure out the variety of different options of how to organize your practice is by interviewing some of my musical heroes. I'm interviewing musicians from every different instrument family, strings, woodwinds, brass, and percussion. If you have the desire to organize your practice so that you can be more efficient and effective in your daily practice session, you can go ahead and download our Organize Your Practice Starter Kit at robnopper.com/organize. Today we have the pleasure of hearing from the Principal Associate Concertmaster of the New York Phil to explain to us some important concepts about how to organize your daily practice session. She has such an inspiring practice session. Whether she's preparing for auditions, her next rehearsal in the orchestra, or preparing for all the various projects she does, like teaching and doing recitals and playing a concerto with the orchestra, she spends so much time on non-repertoire things like scales, etudes, and fundamentals. And I really wanted to understand exactly how she incorporates those things into the busyness of her daily life. So the first question I asked her is, what does a typical practice session look like for her?
I have to say, first of all, that every day is different. My practicing tends to happen over the course of the day. It's either if I happen to be home, I'm practicing some earlier in the day, I'm practicing some later on. If I'm in New York, working at Lincoln Center or up at Manhattan School, I'm practicing some before rehearsal, I'm practicing some in between rehearsal and concert, in between teaching, in between this and that. So I rarely have the luxury of just having a so-called practice session.
I see. So I guess she doesn't have a traditional block of time. She just scatters it around the day whenever she gets a chance. So my next question was, okay, when you do start practicing, what is the first thing that you do?
Most days I'm starting with some kind of scales. I think it's really, really important for so many reasons. One of the most soothing things for me to pick up the violin each day and to just start with very, very slow scales where I'm not only warming up the muscles, the hands and the arms, but also honing in on the technical details and just the basic, really healthy sound. So for me, it's a really, really super slow scale in whatever key. Try to practice all the keys, over the course of time, not all in one day, but just really slow. And I'm looking for perfect intonation. I'm looking for perfect bow control, consistency of sound. I'm looking at my left hand to make sure my fingers are strong and going down exactly the way they should be going down. When I get to the shifts, I'm making sure the shifts are just right and controlled. Many of my most esteemed colleagues at work are doing the exact same thing. Scales are not just for when you're a student. They're definitely for when you're a student, but not only for when you're a student.
One thing that you might not know about Sheryl is that before she was in the New York Philharmonic, she was in the Cleveland Orchestra. No big deal. So I asked her, when you are preparing for an audition, how do you approach learning the excerpts?
Let's take Schumann's Scherzo, for instance. Every single day started really slow, and I made sure that from the very beginning, it was going to be perfectly in tune, good sound, probably something like this. Or however slow I needed to do it, to make sure I'm playing the right notes and figuring out the fingerings, figuring out how I'm going to negotiate these shifts, which get difficult later on in the excerpt because you've got shifting with string crossings at the same time. Working it up with the metronome, starting really slow with the metronome, but making sure that I was at a steady tempo always. Not this kind of, some people fall into the trap where they play kind of faster and then they'll slow down when it gets a little bit more difficult, and they'll speed up again and then slow down when it gets difficult. I like to practice things under tempo in a way that is as relevant as possible to the performance tempo. So with dynamics, phrasing and shape, with the right kind of sound. So if I'm practicing on the string, and I did practice on the string, I'm not practicing with this kind of bow because that's not relevant. To use this much bow is not relevant to playing it. So I'm practicing it with little bows, and as you get faster,
It's not as much of a transition.
exactly.
So one thing about Sheryl is that she doesn't just practice one kind of repertoire. She's not just learning music for orchestra. She's not just learning excerpts. So I asked her to explain a little bit about how she stays well-rounded.
The excerpts that you're practicing for auditions, it's not stretching you technically, then it's really important to find other ways to do that. If you're in a place where you're just reviewing excerpts and reviewing your solo pieces for auditions, you don't have any chamber music concerts set up, you don't have any solo recitals or concerts coming up, you have to force yourself into that area of practicing and preparation.
The last thing I asked Sheryl was just if there's anything else that she had to add about practicing in general.
If there's one other thing to add, it would be to make sure that practicing is always about accomplishing something, not just about putting in the time, not just about playing something over and over and over. You have to make sure that you're really striving for excellence all the time and that your standards are high. Set your standards high. Don't accept that, well, this is as good as I can do it. No.
Yeah. So join me in saying thank you so much to Sheryl Staples for sharing this insightful and well-rounded, inspiring look into her practice routine. This project is actually going to last all the way till September. I already did a video about how to practice when you're tired, and I have different videos coming out that are trainings on how to manage and organize your life around practicing. And basically, I want to give you a wide range of ideas on how you can organize your practice so that you can experiment and create a practice session that works better for you. This was just a few clips from a longer, more in-depth interview with Sheryl, which will all come out as part of the Organize Your Practice course in the fall. You want to get started organizing your practice so that you can get more done in your daily practice session. You can download a new training document that we made called the Organize Your Practice Starter Kit. You can get that at robnopper.com/organize. All right, if you like this video and you want to see more interviews, there's more on the way. Please show me by giving me a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.